Let me see if I can get the deck list up here. I'm gonna be honest, the melee page was not loading for me. But it's all right. Our producers got my back. As it looks like we're presenting and dealing out our opening hands. And it looks like we got a little bit of Jeskai control action on your left versus what I believe is blue-black mid-range. I didn't get to see too much there. I see some Shieldreds. I see some Spyglass Sirens, some blue and black lands. I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it on blue-black mid.
And that's one of the true classics of the standard format, right? So you think back 6 months ago when the format was Gruul against Blue Black and Pixie who just appeared, and it felt like much simpler times. This deck has kind of stubbornly stuck around since then. And the basic gamble is, look, gotta be honest, don't want to get paired against Prowess really, but I like my odds against basically everything else. And this seems to be, if your reader's right, in the basically anything else category.
All right, we're gonna see a Surveillant. Looks like it was kept on top here for Jeskai control. Then a Spyglass Siren into a land passing the turn. A Duress fired off here for Demir mid-range. Gonna see what we have in hand here. 2 stock ups and a Day of Judgment along with 2 lands here. So the coast is clear to play anything on this following turn. Dark Slick Shore is gonna get played. Pop the map here. Now, Enduring Curiosity on top, I wanted to give a quick shout that the time on our screen is going to be a little off. We did give these players an extension because they are moved over to the coverage here. So don't worry too much about that 13 minutes. Pretend it's like more like +6, +7 here, as we are going to attack in for 2 and pass back as stock up is getting cast here for the Jeskai control player, as it is game number 3, by the way. Saw some counter magic in there and lands. I didn't see anything else though, and it looks like that was what was taken, was just the counter magic. Didn't want more lands. As a Deep Cavern Bat gets cast. Yeah, it's just
That's a card that was a staple of these decks at one point. Kind of worked its way out. Squeezed out when the format was a bit more aggressive, but has worked its way back in. And any matchup like this, any slower deck is going to do some good work.
Yeah, and it's something very nice too with Enduring Curiosity, just sort of threatening, making that card a bit more something that we need to think about here for Marshal. Island and attack here, 4/3. The hidden blue dice on the blue creature. And we have a Shieldred, Enduring Curiosity, and lands in hand. Looks like we're maybe thinking about drawing some cards with this 3 steps ahead. And yeah, we're going to get this Enduring Curiosity down. Now Marshall does get to know that it was cast. Probably could have assumed that. We're going to discard the counter spell now that Curiosity's down. Split up in the hand. We have split up and get lost on. We can kind of kill everything.
But at what cost, Mason? At any cost, perhaps.
All right, we're going to start things off with the split up. That's going to give us Day of Judgment back. And we're going to just pass the turn. Maybe hoping to get some more creatures played here. Yeah, and I mean, we're slamming the Shieldred into the Day of Judgment. That is a strong sign of a Spell Pierce type card, but we also knew there was a ton of lands in hand for Marshall a second ago. We're going to get lost the cat here.
But yeah, now the cat in its is going to stick around. It will endure. So now any creature is a real threat, even like a mopey Spyglass Siren. Shiko is going to be the line instead, it looks like. So that's going to get back, get lost for the Shieldred, and be the only thing on board right now, but the biggest thing on most boards as well.
Yeah. Marshall's sort of saying call on you having Spell Pierce here. I'm going to play my Shinko, play around a bit, and then, all right, here's another one, Day of Judgment and Stock Up that we see off this duress. I think Eric doesn't have any more spells in hand. I think it's just lands. I could be mistaken. I was mistaken. We did have a Preacher. Okay, so a pretty powerful follow-up here. Verge is the play for turn. Found off the map. Going to pop the map again. And there's Kaito. Okay,
That's a nice one.
yeah, this is sort of what the blue black deck does, right? You interact a lot, you try to present a couple threats constantly, and then you hope some of your 4 mana cards take over the game.
And that Day of Judgment now looking somewhat awkward, right? Because Marshall doesn't want to sweep away his own Chico. He does have the second one for the turn after that, but that's a fair bit in the future. But if he doesn't use that, then he can't really block the Preacher. But if the Preacher connects, then Eric will get to draw a card. And then the Kaido is going to almost force his hand on the sweeper, but also doesn't get swept away itself. So looking mighty awkward there.
Yeah, interesting. We're legend. I kind of thought we might Day of Judgment and save the second one for like a get lost on the Kaito. But it looks like we're just going to be casting this to stock up here and try and find some more efficient answers. 5 in hand here for Marshall. Takes 1. Looks like gonna take a land. Not decides to go with Beza instead, and then passes the turn. Kaito the draw here. An attack in. Gonna make a vampire. Excuse me, it should be a draw card. Misspoke on my part there.
Which honestly, he'll take that instead. Yeah. Although the vampire with curiosity is like some amount of a card as well, so works out either way. And yeah, Kaido going to jump in instead. Preacher back to hand. Imagine we'll see and Kaido stun the Shiko post combat. Duress
Maybe we look.
first to clear the way.
Yeah. Day of Judgment, Exhaust, Lightning Helix, and Beza. Yeah, taking the Helix here, making this stun counterplay potentially much, much more appealing. And we're gonna tick up the Kaito. Okay, get a little beatdown going.
I like that too because it kind of means the Shiko is almost priced into attacking the Kaito anyway, and now obviously any future Kaito it hits even harder. This one will as well. And if Marshall's on 8, then dealing 4 versus dealing 3, like I mean that is a whole turn off the clock potentially.
It is massive. Yeah, we might even see the Kaito tick up again too, right? Just to like threaten chunking in for a ton. Especially with this Beza being played, you're going to gain 4 life.
Now, the downside of doing it this way is now the Kaito basically will die next turn, so it can't stun anything now because it's been attacked down to 1. So, it can take up or it can try and get a card after combat on its way out. But yeah, Eric is going for the throat. There's another Kaito emblem, just instantly swings in with both of these. We'll draw another card from Future.
Yep. And we're just confirming here the Kaito is getting +2/+2, so it is a 5/6. Base is going to get in the way of Preacher. To say, I wonder if we're going to see the Kaito ninjutsu off Kaito line. Would have been kind of actually pretty powerful if it had happened. But
definitely.
We're going to get a draw off the Curiosity there. Creature land entering the play. Okay, if you're going to have a land, that's a good one. And another Preacher.
that the Soulstone Sanctuary that both players are taking a look at there?
I don't.
Oh no, this is
I
Draneth Ruins. Okay. Yeah. So a rarely seen card from the Artmar set that puts counters on a non-human creature, excuse me, that entered the battlefield this turn. So you imagine a board state like this, you pump up your creature, you pump up a life leaking, or you pump up a vampire from the creature, can pump up Kaito itself, weirdly, Spyglass Siren. So going long, I mean, a very powerful card. Not a manland in the conventional sense, but something that enhances every one of your actual creatures.
Yeah, and especially with something like, Deep Cavern Bat, that's actually really huge, right?
Mm.
Now your Deep Cavern Bat's an actual big threat. Now there's a bunch of things that can kill it here, but you could imagine against something like Cutter, right? You hit the late game, maybe you steal like, their last little cantrip they were holding on to, and then suddenly you have a 3/3 lifelinker. That's kind of massive. We are going to take a split up here, activate our Restless Reef, and get an attack in here. And yeah, Preacher's going to draw a card as well because we're up on life.
We got some actual damage, we got some deck damage, probably some psychic damage as well. Eric really attacking on all fronts.
All right, getting in front of the creature land here makes sense with the Day of Judgment in hand. Maybe a reason to have taken Day over split up. Eric does have Disdainful Stroke, though. And yeah, if you're Marshall, you have to be thinking, this makes sense. He took my split up. That had to be something, but I have this exhaust still, so everything's gone. Split up goes back to hand. Oh, and another creature land into Preacher. It just doesn't stop for Eric. I
And
mean,
there's Dragon Thrones. So yeah, this is going to be a map token first, excuse me.
Flood Pit Drowner on top. It's no Preacher of the Schism, but it's going to have to do. As
Yeah, so this is now as a 5/7 creature. I mean, that's already a lethal threat, but now massive overkill.
yeah,
Has to be split up, of course.
land surveilling away, but do we have an answer for this reef while also answering the Flood Pit Drowner? And we saw this Curiosity so many turns ago go into the into the enchantment zone, and has just allowed Eric to get those few extra cards he needed. Shinko, a great draw. Restless Reef stood back. We didn't want to run it into anything last turn. Yeah, I mean, Stock Up is a good card. It's the one you're going to need to get out of this. Both players know Eric has Flood Pit Drowner as the only card in hand. Might have been a spot to do this before the Stock Up resolves. Now, we know there's a three steps ahead, excuse me, in hand.
Yeah, well, when the card is face up, you like if this was a random card drawn by Eric, maybe there was some consideration for okay, I'll let the stock up resolve because then Marshall doesn't know exactly what kind of threat he's under that he has to find answers for. But we and they knew the Floodbit Drowner was coming, so it makes sense to do that in response and just not give Marshall this out that was found, right? Of finding the Tiebinder to answer that.
Okay, banning the Deep Cavern Bat. Not good enough for us. Animate the Reef and get attack in here. Flood Pit Drowner does have Vigilance, if I remember correctly.
Sure does. So see if we can get that fixed real fast before they notice themselves.
Yeah, it will matter because of a thing like Split Up. Of note, too, remember the clock timer we have is a little off. We kept it running to keep in pace with the match round clock. Right. Well, we're just trading off here, so not the end of the world.
Although, sorry, chat correcting us that Vigilance, one of the many abilities removed by the Tiebinder. So, no, both
Oh,
players, in fact, on top of that, and everything dying in that combat when the dust settled there.
yeah, but Eric just keeps drawing threats, and this battlefield ruins is just turning everything into these kind of must kill threats. As Beza does come down, more lands in play for Eric. So a treasure gets made. Marshall just happy to be up to 6 life, can actually survive the Spyglass Siren.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what the start of a comeback looks like, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
if in a few turns we're saying, how did Marshall get back into this game? I think the story starts with, with maybe that first misstep and then this Beza, and he needs the hits to keep on coming, but he now has a little bit of breathing room.
All right, 4 mills, a little off screen. Beza's going to trade with the rest of the three. Curiosity's going to draw us a card. Negates one of those cards. Deep Cavern Bat again, despite binning one, and that's the Beza. And we're going to pass the turn back. Dom, this is such a brutal spot to be in. Marshall has fought through so many threats and negate on the stock up. Eric moves on to 2-0. What a wild game. I'm glad we got to see that one.